We are talking about tomatoes. This tomato crop you see here, old because this is what we've been harvesting. This is what we harvested today. It's from May 20th. So also roughly about 75 days. It really matures quickly. And this is the crop we have harvested now for 3 weeks. Around 3 weeks, yeah, around 3 weeks. This is the third week. And this is what we've been supplying to the hospital and the community around. And now this crop, of course, we still have another 1 or so weeks to harvest from this crop, and then we can be able to shift to the other crop. We are going to see it later. And someone asked me how safe these tomatoes are. Well, one answer. They are. No chemicals. Safe for eating. Now, this is how we do the tomatoes. Of course, for us to be able to produce consistently, you will have this crop that we are harvesting now. We are going to see another crop which is also now starting to ripen. Then another one that has not even finished flowering. Then another one that we just transplanted, and another one that has just been planted in the nurseries. So that's how we do the tomatoes. And also, as you can see, we still have our maize as the bordering crop. And also the maize is ready, so it's good news everywhere. Tomatoes we transplant after every 3 weeks. Oh yes. For example, we transplanted the other one last week. Yeah, last week. We have another one in the nursery, which will be transplanted 3 weeks from now. You get it? So we have those 3 weeks intervals to be able to give us this that you're seeing. So that we have what we are harvesting, and then we have that seamless connection to the next crop. You get it, eh? Yes. Let's go and see the one that followed this one now. This is the second crop we planted after the one we have shown you which we are harvesting right now. This is what we are going to harvest next week. Starting next week, we should be able to get some ripe tomatoes from here. So when that one will be dying off, because it's a one seasonal crop, when the other one will be dying off, then we shall come here, and then we'll be able to continue with the supply. Now, if you noticed, the other crop we had a different kind of support system, and here we have a different kind of support system. This is simply to be able to handle the tomatoes better than we did in the first crop. So the subsequent ones, you'll be able to see that the crop support is much better than what we had in the first crop. And also the production, the yielding is much better than what we had in the first crop, because after the first crop experience, we were able to know, okay, the soil is lacking this and this, and then we were able to improve that. And that's why now we have the beautiful crop, as you can see it here with me. Now, these tomatoes yields for about, the harvesting window is for about a maximum of a month. From the day you start harvesting to the day the plant literally dies off. So that's why you see most of them don't go beyond my waistline. And then right now, as of this minute, you find that the flowering is really not much, because now the plant at this point is concentrating on the fruits, enlarging the fruit size to be able to give us the best weight possible from one fruit. So now from this crop, someone has reminded me about the name. We are planting Novel. It's a variety we call Novel. It's an open field crop which is tolerant to bacteria wilt. Bacteria wilt is a disease, a bacteria-caused disease that makes the tomatoes to wilt. So Novel is a friendly tomato to plant in such an environment, and that's why we are using it. From here, we are going to see another crop that we planted 3 weeks after this one. Then you'll be able to see the consistency that we are talking about. Thank you. This is the third crop that we planted since we came here. Right now we are at the flowering stage. That's why you see flowers all over the place. I'm seeing bees surrounding me, doing a very good job, helping us with pollination. Pollination is simply the process through which, you know, the pollens fall into the stigma, and then the fruit forms, the process of forming a fruit. At this stage, this is when the plant needs a lot of attention, because you have to make sure that you don't have pests. You have to make sure that the plant is not thirsty, or it's not denied water or foods that it needs. So at this point is when we take care of issues like calcium, and then issues like potassium that are required by the tomatoes, so that it can give you a sizable fruit that doesn't have diseases and the rottings on the lower side of the fruit and the like. Now, the reason why you see we have these wood chippings on the ground, or these brown things you're seeing on the ground, is simply to help us to mulch the ground onto which we planted these tomatoes. Now, this mulching helps us in different aspects. Number one is that it suppresses any weeds that may want to grow, because it's covering the entire ground. So we don't have to, you know, weed and reweed all the time. So this mulching is for that purpose. Then we also have the issue of water retention in the soil. Retaining water in this kind of environment is something that you cannot take lightly, because without that water, really these tomatoes cannot grow this beautifully. Now, at this stage, as you see behind me, you may be able to see someone who is doing some work. We are doing what we call tree rising, or supporting the plants, because at this point the plant is so vigorous, it's growing every single day. And a tomato plant normally grows 1 centimeter a day in all directions. So it's really a very vigorous stage, and that's at this very stage you have to keep supporting it and making sure that it has enough aeration under there. Without the aeration, the tomatoes are not going to, they are going to get what we call fungal infections, and fungal infections end up killing the tomato plant. Now, these plants, of course, at this stage it wants to grow in any direction, but it is at this very point that we tame the plant by pruning off the branches that we don't want, and the excess leaves, so that the plant can be able to we can be able to handle the plant. Otherwise, the tomato can be a wild crop, and then you fail to manage it, because once it grows wild, it becomes very hard and very difficult to handle. So this is the crop that we planted as the third crop, and then from here we have another crop that we planted of recent, I think a week ago, which is now following this one. Now, that crop that we planted a week from now will be able to flower maybe in 2 weeks' time, and then it will be at this stage. Then the one that is in this stage will be in the stage where we've just come from. So that is the consistency that we are talking about, and this is the care that we give in this farm. It's not a simple job, but trust me, it's enjoyable, because this is what gives us life. This is what we like doing. We have just looked at 3 different stages of tomatoes, which we had earlier planted. Now, this is the 4th stage that we have, and this one we transplanted last week, which is roughly 8 days from now. And you can already see the crop has already started growing. It has finally caught properly in the ground, and this is where the nursery management comes in handy. If the tomato is planted right in the nursery, when you transplant, like you can see, you don't experience much death after transplanting. Now, if you look keenly, most of these tomatoes now have all caught up at the same speed, at the same rate. And then the garden was prepared right, the manure was applied, the irrigation system is set. I mean, there is no excuse for this crop not to grow, unless we have other natural issues which we may not really be able to control. But now this crop, we expect it to start flowering a week or 10 days from now. That's when they start flowering, and that's when we start applying calcium supplements to help it handle the flowering, and some of other micronutrients that the tomatoes need at that stage. At this stage, mainly what we concentrate on is the vigor of the plant, or what we would call the vegetative growth of this plant, so that we make sure it gets enough vigor to be able to flower properly and to be able to have the right stem and the right root system. At this point, that's what we are concentrating on, to make sure that this plant has the right foundation, so for it to be able to give us the kind of tomatoes that you've seen in the previous recording. Now, this kind of crop here, we've not yet started supporting with the crop support, or what you saw us trializing the other side with the ropes and with some metals, because at this point it doesn't really need it. It will come after 2 weeks. On the second week from now, that's when now it will be in need of that system. So the system, the setting we've done here is that we have the tomato that we are harvesting. We have the one that we shall start harvesting next week. We have a tomato that we shall start harvesting in a month's time. And now we have this one that we shall harvest in 2.5 months' time, so that we make sure we have that consistency in production. If you look on my left, we have the cabbages on the upper side, and then we have the maize bordering the cabbages and these tomatoes. This maize, you had just seen the grown maize the other side. Now this is much younger maize, but it's definitely taller than the tomatoes. So it helps us to be able to protect this crop from whatever is in the other crop the other side. And also, if for example we are spraying let's say an insecticide or some pesticide that we are trying to control a certain maybe disease or insect, those insects or that chemical also doesn't overflow into the other block. Now on the lower side, we also have some young maize coming up. You can't see it yet, but in about a month's time, the maize will also be much taller than the tomatoes, because maize grows much faster than the tomatoes. So that's the kind of setting up that we've done in this garden. And if you have been keen, we have this land partitioned into blocks. So these blocks, the reason why we partition them and we give them different assignments, like we are going to see later, is to be able to isolate a given crop at different stages. For example, this is block 3. We have crop that we've just transplanted. We are from block 11, where we saw the tomatoes flowering. Then we came from block 12, where we have now the tomatoes that have not yet started ripening, but they are mature. Then the block 14 is where we are harvesting right now. Let's go ahead and look at something else. Thank you.